Mike died on the way to the hospital. You're going to jail for accessory to murder. Wow. TOPPI did it, didn't he? Didn't he? And they just kept grilling him until he said that it was me.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Bounce Back Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I got a special guest with me today. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell the people your name, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself.
All right. My name is William TOPPI. I'm from Lynn, Massachusetts. And I grew up in a little housing project called Kernwood Circle in Lynn, Massachusetts.
Talk about that. What was that like?
Oh, well, it was a good neighborhood. You know, back then you had racial disparity all over the place, but in my neighborhood, everybody got along. We didn't see that until we left our neighborhood and then encountered it in other places. Like, you know, we'd have a black kid, a Spanish kid, a white kid. When we left our neighborhood, we got those problems, and we didn't understand that from where we came from.
Okay.
We didn't live with that.
So talk a little bit about the home dynamic. Two-parent home, or?
No, I grew up with a single mom, you know, and a lot of abusive relationships, and, you know, so I skipped school a lot. My only time in DYS was for truancy. All my friends went to DYS for robberies and violence and, you know, all that stuff, and I ended up going for truancy.
And that's skipping school for the newer generation. Yeah. I don't know if that was the word that they're using nowadays. I remember back in the days, truant officers and all that. It's not a word I hear commonly used today, so just for some clarification.
Because it was Halloween when I went in there. They gave me like a month for truancy, and I went to the place up in Middleton, you know, where everybody goes, and then I was shipped to like a foster home, like, you know, they put people in families. Here I am in this family. They had a 16-year-old son who was smoking weed with me every day. He had to go to school, and I could just sleep all day because I'm in jail. I'm being punished for truancy, living in a house better than my own.
Wow.
You know, eating great. We got HBO in the cellar. This kid's bringing me all around, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't even want to leave.
So that was kind of like
that was my only time
proverbial smack on the wrist,
yeah,
right?
Because when I went back home, you know, I went back into an abusive
Did you have any siblings?
I got a brother and a sister, yeah.
What's the where do you fall as far as the age?
I'm the middle child.
Okay.
So my sister's 3 years older. My brother's 2 years younger.
Okay.
My parents were in a bad car accident when my mother was pregnant with my brother, and that was the end of that family. You know, we went from living in our own home, you know, with the backyard and everything, to the broken home. Parents all screwed up. My father was crippled with brain damage. My mother had all kinds of problems from that accident, and went to the housing project.
Wow. How do you think that affected her mental health wise?
Yeah, it changed everything, you know.
It had an effect on you guys?
It had an effect on us, yeah. My brother acted out. He's always getting in trouble in school. I was the smart kid, but after sixth grade, I stopped going to school.
Why? What were you doing? Did you stay home and take care of
No, it was something about, like, you know, in elementary school, you got one class. I know all my classmates. I feel comfortable. I'm the smartest kid in the class. You know, I thought I was going to go to junior high and everything was going to be wonderful. But in junior high, you had to go all these different classes and the crowded hallways, and it just overwhelmed me, and I just couldn't deal with it. Like, I have
anxiety?
Social anxiety, yeah. I've had that all my life, and it could be from, you know, my upbringing.
So what would you do when you were skipping, or when you just didn't go to school? Did you stay home? Were you out in the street?
This is, you know, I'm 57, so this is back in like the 70s, early 80s, you know. They didn't do what they do now to protect children, you know what I mean? Yeah. Everything. We used to be able to call the taxi company, you know, at 12 years old and say, my mom wants a pack of Marlboros and a six-pack, and they'd bring it to the house as long as you paid, you know. Right. And it was just us kids, you know, hanging out in an empty building.
Did you get yourself into any trouble when you weren't going to school?
Nope. Kernwood Circle is located next to Lynn Woods, which is a big preserve, you know, and it goes to Linfield and Saugus. and there's different reservoirs in there, and I could just go into the woods all day and.
So you weren't
just lose
committing any
myself.
crimes or anything like
No,
that?
no, not that.
When
not
does
at that time.
when does that come into play where you start not even getting caught, but start breaking the law? Because a lot of times you don't get caught the first time. It starts with whatever, stealing a
When
candy
you grow up
bar.
in a housing project and you come from a broken home and you're dealing with social anxiety, you end up hanging out with the misfit crowd. And my misfit crowd just happened to be extremely violent and criminals, and our leader was actually a girl.
Wow.
And she beat up men. Nobody would mess with her. She passed away at 16, God rest her soul.
Wow.
She drowned,
That's
being chased from the police from a housebreak or something, and they got on a log to cross the water, and one kid made it, and when he turned around, the water was calm and there was nobody there. Wow. And that was my other best friend, who's probably in prison right now. Wow. He's been in DYS, right to prison, and just...
What about family members? Was prison, jail, anything that kind of was common in your family?
Nobody went to prison in my family except me.
Nobody getting arrested or anything?
Well,
Maybe
yeah,
little
my
stuff?
brother ended up arrested and just for acting out. And they put him, the 21-day observation things, things like that.
No one around you's doing time or anything like that as far as family, but you said your friends started to
all
go
my
in and
friends,
out. Did you notice that? Were they going in before you?
My friend got caught for everything he ever did. He's like the Charlie Brown of crime, no matter what. And when he went to court, he just pled, he just did whatever they told him to.
Yeah.
And there's actually a case where I'm the co-defendant with him, was an armed robbery case, which was actually not an armed robbery at all. It was me, him, and this other kid. We're on our bicycles, and we're behind this church, and those two get in an argument. And my friend, who's extremely violent, beats the hell out of the kid. And we ride away on our bicycles, and some other kids come along, and they take the kid's bike. Wow. When the cops come behind the church and they see the beat-up kid, they ask him what happens. And he says, me and the other kid hit him over the head with the brick and stole his bike.
Wow.
Armed robbery.
No brick ever was...
No, there was nothing like that. We didn't even take his bike. Some other kids came by.
Do you think he purposely lied, or do you think he felt like he got hit with a brick?
He just
all
purposely
disorientated?
lied because he
Okay.
was mad at me for not sticking up for him. There was not much I could do against my buddy. He was very, very violent,
So for those who don't know, armed robbery and unarmed robbery, that's a big difference.
Serious events. So for 2 years, I had the warrant for me, and I had no idea. My friend was already in prison for other charges, and he pled guilty for 3 to 5 Walpole for that case. Imagine that?
3 to 5.
For something that's not even
Was this his first arrest?
No, he was already doing time, so they were like concurrent,
Yep.
you know what I mean? He just plead guilty, and that's what he always did. He just did what they told him.
They eventually arrest you. Talk about how that happens. You said you don't even know you have a warrant, so
Exactly.
I'm sure
They
caught
come
you
to
by
my house to
surprise.
get my kid brother, and they're like, Dave TOPPI, that's my brother, you're under arrest. And they say, hey, what's your name? And I'm like, I'm William TOPPI. And they look at each other, and I'm like, whoa, 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 because they, it's an armed robbery warrant, so they're ready to jump on me. They think I'm going to jump out the window or something.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, and so I go with them, and and I find out I got this armed robbery. And
Do you find out when you get to the police station? Because
yeah,
did they tell you on the way?
They told me right on the way, you're
Okay.
under arrest, armed robbery. I couldn't believe it.
Did you know, like put 2 and 2 together in your head what it was?
Well, when I got a court-appointed lawyer who later became a judge who I actually went up against.
Wow.
And he remembered me, and that was like almost 20 years later. And he says, I got to recuse myself from this case. Because he says right on the, on the bench, he's like, I remember this guy, and I was very fond of him.
Yeah, so how was he as a lawyer? What happened with the
really
case?
good. He refused to let me plead this case. He's like, this is ridiculous. But because the other guy pled guilty, they wanted a guilty out of me too.
Did you have to bail out and fight
No,
from the
no,
street?
there
So
was
you
no
weren't
bail.
incarcerated?
Nope, I wasn't incarcerated on that. So
You were or you weren't?
No, I wasn't.
So you made a bail?
$25 bail. at the
Okay, and then
police
you fought it
station.
from the street?
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna lead up to like your first arrest. Was that your first arrest, the first serious one at least?
No, I had using without authority, a car.
Okay.
I saw the key in the car, and it was my birthday. we all got in the car and they were like, it's Toppy's birthday. He gets to drive, right? So I back up and the blue lights are right there. The minute I back, right off the get-go. So they're like, go Toppy, So I floor it down the street into a pole.
Nice. But nothing that led to doing any time before this point, or had you already done time?
Yeah, I got no time for that car incident, but I did get time I got 7 days in the old Salem jail with no toilets and everything, and they would shit bucket each other.
I've seen photos of that place.
Let me tell you. My friend Mike, he did years in that place, years, you know. I couldn't even imagine. The cockroach, you would wake up at night and see a mouse sitting on your foot, like eating something, and just the wall full of cockroaches,
Wow, that's horrible.
Yeah, and you get your bucket. It's a white, 5-gallon bucket, is with a cap on it in case you have to go to the bathroom.
No running water.
No running water in your cell, no.
Okay, but that was only 7 days. This time
that was 7 days, but that was for a break and enter into an empty apartment building. We were all hanging out in the empty building. The door's not even locked.
Should have been a trespassing.
It should have been a trespassing, but because I was with Mike, who they always want to get, it gets elevated to that, And for that predated that armed robbery thing, and the lawyer said you should have never pled guilty to that. And I did. So it was,
I mean, you're sitting there 7 days. I just want this to be over with, but you don't think about down the line, and then when records start getting brought up and all that. So tell me about your waiting trial for the armed robbery. Does it get indicted? Does it go to Superior Court?
It goes to, he moves it from Lynn Court to Peabody Court, and I asked for a jury trial. I think it was like 6-man juries in the district court, something like that.
Yeah, yep.
So the guy never shows up, and the case is dismissed.
How long do you have to sit until you get out?
That went on for like another year, so it was like almost 4 years after the allegation that it was dismissed in the court,
Okay, and you were fighting this the whole time, and no other cases during that?
No other cases. In my life, I've had many years go by without a case, and then all of a sudden, bam, serious cases, facing big time.
So what's the next case after the armed robbery?
Well,
how long do you have in between? What happens?
All my friends went to jail, Everybody in my neighborhood who I hung out with, my misfit crowd, was either dead or in prison. And so I had to get a job, and I got a landscaping job. Nobody would give me a job. I was a skinny kid, I think I was homeless at the time even, living in an empty building. And I said, I'll work a week for nothing,
just to prove yourself.
To prove that I can get a job. And this guy gave me a job, and I worked there. It was Leahy Landscaping. And then a couple of years later, I wanted more than I was making. I wanted money, my friends were back out of prison. I had new friends. I saw everybody, driving nice cars, making money with drugs. Lynn is a drug haven. So I didn't use drugs, so I got into the drug trade. And that was, I've heard people talk about drugs on your podcast here, and they all say the same thing. Once you touch it, you create a karma, with it, and that's a real thing.
Yeah. I believe in that 100%. That's why I won't.
I won't
middleman anything. I won't do any of that.
You see mansions that say "se vende," for sale. They make a lot of money, and they're buying up land and they're building these houses. And before the house is even built, their kids born with birth defects. Their wife leaves them for someone. Someone dies in an accident. They go to prison. Like everything goes down.
So how long did you last selling drugs? Were you making good money?
I lasted 6 months. 6 months.
What kind of drugs were you? Everything?
A handful, I was buying a 62 and a half, and just selling my little packages of coke. And 6 months later, I was living in Marblehead, Massachusetts, and boom, I had my girlfriend who said that I was selling drugs or whatever because we had a fight, and she went into the police station. As I was driving away, she left with the police. She called the police or something, And she was from Connecticut, and I didn't really know anything about her. She recently passed away. I saw it on Facebook, but I didn't know much about her. I had a regular girlfriend, and we broke up, and then I met this girl in that interval, and when when I drove by the police station, I saw her going in with them, and I didn't think anything of it, you know. And I left town. I went to New York, actually, with my Dominican friends to get more drugs. When we came back, it was like midnight in Marblehead, Mass. You know, it's a quiet little town. There's only two ways out. You go to Salem or you go through Swampscott, you know. And we go, I lived on the 4th floor. We go upstairs, and my door's open, and my house is trashed.
Wow.
And I'm like, somebody broke in my house. And my friends are like, no, man, this is the police. Let's get out of here. And we run downstairs, and my friend goes out first, and they just start clubbing them and beating them, you know.
Wow.
And now I have to go out there too, you know. Yeah. I'm right behind them, and I open the door and I step to the side. No one even noticed me. There were so many cops beating that guy.
Wow.
And I went around the building and ran, and they had dogs chasing me all night. And I made my way to Marblehead. I figured they knew I was going to go to Lynn through Swampscott, so I went the other way. Anyway, I turned myself in with my old boss from Leahy Landscaping, and they gave me a $7,500 bail in that case. But maybe a month later, I was with my violent friend Mike, hanging out and stuff, and then someone stabbed him, almost killed him.
Wow.
And they fingered me for it. My best friend.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why did they finger you?
Because people in the neighborhood said me and him had an argument or something, and someone went through a window and stabbed him, and they had 2 guys in that apartment, and he lost a lot of blood. He almost died. And the kid that lived there said, when they were trying to say it was me, he said, no, you know, I didn't see who it was, but it couldn't have been TOPPI. That's his best friend. Right. But the other kid, they said, Mike died on the way to the hospital. You're arrested. You're going to jail for accessory to murder. Wow. TOPPI did it, didn't he? Didn't he? And they just kept grilling him until he said that it was me. Wow. And they even got Mike in his hospital bed, half dead, to sign a paper saying it was me. Damn. You know, later on, he was like, I didn't, you know. So when the case, so then they gave me a $10,000 bail for that.
And where are you sitting now? What jail do you go to?
I didn't go to jail.
You made the bail? I'm
on $7,500 bail for drug trafficking, facing, you know, 5 mandatory. Back then it was mandatory.
And what year was all this?
It was 1990.
Okay.
Well, a long time ago. Yep. So I'm facing 5 mandatory for that. Now I'm facing another 10, 15, whatever they give you for attempted murder. You know, and they gave me a $10,000. So I'm out on $17,500 bail on 2 different cases. Wow. Back then they give you these bails. Yeah. Now you get another case.
That's a wrap.
Yeah, they no more bail.
Yeah, at least for 90 days or 6 months, I think they can hold you.
I don't even think they give you another, but they're not going to give you consecutive bails anymore.
Oh, probably not. No, they revoke that bail.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what happened to me later on.
Yeah. So what happened? That happens to you.
I get out for that. When we go to court in Lindster Court for the attempted murder, I'm free, so I'm sitting in the stands, and I'm sitting next to this nice, you know, middle-aged lady and this other old guy and everything, and they're talking to me, you know. And then the DA talks about the charges. He viciously came through the window and repeatedly stabbed him in the neck, in the face, in the back, and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, oh, my God. And they bring Mike out. Now, he's in custody, so he's in shackles. And my friend Mike, you know, I don't even want to say his last name, but everybody knows him. He's been in prison his whole life. He looks like, what's that actor? Jack Nicholson. Okay. He looks exactly like Jack Nicholson, right? He's just got the demon eyes, you know, and he's violent. So when they bring him out, you would have thought they brought King Kong out, and the audience is like, oh. Like so everybody's staring at him. He's on this witness stand because he's the victim. But the judge and all the people think he's the perpetrator and that I'm the victim. Wow. So when they start talking about it and the judge is glaring at him, the prosecutor has to say, Your Honor, that's the victim. The defendant's over there, and the whole court turns to look at me in the audience, right? And I'm like, and the old lady is like scoots away from me, you know. Wild. And he told them, it wasn't him. That's my best friend, you know. And and so that case was dismissed. But the funny thing is, the appointed attorney I have was named Aviva Jerucham, right? And she later said that she never had a case in Lynn. she was one of the investigating attorneys from CPCS, who's on the board of CPCS in Suffolk County and the board of MACDL, the Massachusetts Association of Criminal Defense Attorneys or something. She wanted me to plead guilty for attempted murder.
Wow.
And I'm like, I didn't, no way. And she was pressuring me to do that. And so the case was...
Does it even get to Superior Court?
Nope, no. That was a probable cause hearing, and there was no probable cause. They were like, this is dismissed.
And then, but now you still have this open drug case?
Yes, so I had the open drug case.
What happens?
I took it to trial, The cops didn't do any, like investigation on me. They just had a girl say I sold drugs, and they kicked my door in on that alone when I wasn't even home.
Did they find, what did they end up finding?
They found 48 grams of coke.
Okay.
So that was a 5 mandatory. That was, the judge gave a big speech, so I went to trial. I fought it, and lost. The case ended. It resulted with coke was found in your house. The apartment's in your name. Coke was in the apartment. That's it, and with the scale, whatever.
Yeah.
That's and the jury found me guilty of drug trafficking based on those two key pieces of evidence. That's your apartment. The coke was in the apartment. That's it.
It's a wrap.
No drug buys, no surveillance, nothing like that.
Wow.
Just like.
So they were able to get probable cause for the warrant just off of a phone call, is pretty much what you're saying, from a ex-girlfriend or girlfriend that was mad.
I guess that girl had been a witness for other cases or something in the past from
reliable,
Connecticut.
Confidential, informant,
I
probably.
doubt
whatever.
it, but they said that.
Wow.
And because it was Marblehead, where all the rich people live, they made a big deal about it, It was in the front page. I even went down there to make them retract their story, and they did a little tiny thing in the back page.
Of course,
after a front page thing.
Yeah, that no one's going to see. So what did you get for a sentence?
The judge gave this big speech, right? It was a woman judge, and she's like, didn't want to send me to prison. But she said, after this big speech, I was like, I'm going home, the way she was talking good about me.
Right.
You never hear judges talk like that. Then she says, but my hands are tied, and 5 years and a day. Bing. I was like, what does that mean? What happened? Like,
And that's because of the mandatory minimums at the time?
Yeah, she had no choice but to give me a 5 mandatory. That was the law. But she made sure, thanks to her, because if it was a different judge, they could, like the one I just had recently, I'd still be in prison. She made sure that I think it was like 6 days before mandatory law went into effect that I was actually arrested.
Okay.
Because I was arrested in 1990 and convicted in 92 with the new laws. So I could get good time at least.
Okay.
And I was in there with a guy who had 42 grams of coke, and he was arrested a week after me. When I was leaving after 2 years and 9 months, I remember shaking his hand because he had another 2 years to go. He had to do his 5 from a week's difference.
Why were you able to get out in the 2?
I was arrested exactly 6 days before the law went into effect. So the judge made sure I was able to get good time.
And you got 2?
On my sentence. Even though it was a 5 mandatory, I was able to get good time because I was arrested before the mandatory law by 6 days.
And you got 2.5 years of good time in that?
Yep, I did
time?
2 years, 9 months exactly.
How was your bid? Where's the first stop that you go to?
Well, back then, prison was overcrowded with the mandatory laws. So they had us housed in, over in Concord, they had us in some other building, where you go in to go to visits and stuff. We was in that building, all in a room, with desks and books and stuff.
Wow.
People sleeping all over the floors.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's how they had us. And they had us like that for a couple of weeks. And then they actually took me and put me in the hole for 3 days. I wasn't being punished for anything, but
no way to put
they had people coming in, inspectors, to check out the prison, and they had to hide us.
Yeah.
So I went to the hole, and this guy was, this guy's doing time in the hole. He's got this young kid coming in there.
Yeah.
And they're like, here, you got a roommate for a couple of days.
How do you feel about that? You must feel helpless. You must feel like, man, this is going to be a long time.
Yeah,
I mean, this
but
is just the
that guy
beginning.
was good friends with someone else that grew up in Lynn. So, and that's the thing too. that was my first time going to prison. You know, I did my 7 days in Salem jail where everybody was local.
Right.
But now I'm in state prison, you know, and I don't know anything about prison. My friends have been in and out of prison my whole life. They go in, everybody knows them, you know.
Culture shock.
Yeah, I went in there, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on, you know. And I remember I went to the chow hall, and I saw this big, tough-looking guy, and I remembered him from Lynn. So I walk over, and I'm like, I say his name, and he's like, beat it, you know. And I'm from Lynn, you know, and he's like, all right, move over, you know, and they sit here. And Lynn had their own table back then in every place I went to.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just like a Suffolk County table. It was actually Lynn table. It was like all Lynn guys. And so I didn't have any problems. But
you stayed in Concord for how long?
I went from there to the J building, you know. And then from there, I went to Shirley Medium. And back then, Shirley Medium was way better than it is now. They have it all fenced off and sectioned now, but it was wide open. And I was there during a riot, which they then fenced in all these different, you know, like sections or something.
What happened with the riot? Was it like against the officers, or was it inmate on inmate? What was going on there?
It was Jamaicans against like Puerto Ricans or something like that. Okay. So it was an interracial
Nothing that involved you. What did you think when that was
popping
off?
Well, it did involve me because I grew up in, my neighborhood was like non-racist, right? So I went into prison not realizing how everything's so segregated. You know, when I saw my best friends from Lynn, like we had a Lynn table, but it was black guys from Lynn, and they didn't sit it with us, you know?
Yep.
And, you know, I didn't understand that. So I actually had a Haitian girlfriend, and when she came up to visit, back then you could also have like nudie books. I had, you know, like a subscription to Hustler, the Lynn Item, National Geographic. They don't even have National Geographic anymore. It's only on the computer, I think.
Wow.
They stopped making them. You can't have porno in prison now, you know what I mean, dirty pictures or anything. Back then you could. And,
I remember Billerica, when I first went to Billerica, you were allowed to have played no penetration, which was odd to me. I'm like, I never seen it. Well, it must have been because it was so old.
They had everything where I was, you know, back in 92, 93. So my cellmate, though, was like the white supremacist kid, little, skinny, weak kid, but he wants to be something.
Where was he from? Do you remember?
I don't even remember. Okay. But he was a good kid. He just is, you know, just trying to make his way through prison and do his time, you know. So he saw me on the visit with my black girlfriend, and he was like, you know, what are you gonna, you know, and I'm like, what, you're gonna make me move out? I'm like, you can move out. I mean, I don't, you know. But he's like, no. Then he's like, so he's like, what's she like? You know, he's curious. And I'm like, oh, you don't know, you know. So now this kid's obsessed with black girls, this white supremacist kid. And my best friend at the time was the Jamaican kid, Tony French. I don't know.
And this is someone you knew from Lynn, from the streets, or you just?
I met him in prison.
Okay.
And we used to do our workouts together. You know, pull-ups and the dip bar, you know, and the squats and everything. And he became my best friend because he was on my block. All the Lynn guys. I was on, I think it was E. Yeah, I was in E, and all the Lynn guys were in F, the next block over, the last one. He just became my best friend. You know, we always hung out together, and his Jamaican friends didn't like it too much. My Lynn guys didn't care who, you know, when in the yard, all the Lynn guys came together, black, white, Spanish.
So you got caught up because that was your friend? Did you get
caught? No, I didn't get caught up in it.
I
just remember seeing them take him away, and I was totally bummed out because, you know, prison, the camaraderie you get is all you got, you know. You're separated from your family and everything, and there's thousands of guys. You're isolated. The fear factor. It's it's a violent and hazardous environment. So the friendships you forge with people become like family. Those are your people.
Guys going through pretty much the toughest time of your life at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we were young guys. I was like 25. He was the same age as me. And
someone leaves too. They bring their energy with them. It's sad. Even when they go home, it's like you're happy for them, but it's like you look around. It's like this place will never be the same without that person. At least for me, or for you, or for whoever the person is. We were
working out together, and then next thing you know, he's gone. And I'm in the gym with my other friends, but I'm like, you know.
So how many people were involved in that? You said, is that what?
All the Jamaican guys, you know. He had,
I mean, a general number. That could be 50, 10, I don't know.
No, it was a small number. There
Yeah.
was only so many Jamaicans, but
Okay.
there was maybe 15, 30 of them.
Is that when they started splitting up now, locking down Shirley Medium? You said
Well,
that was when it was open. And
They
then,
had, they locked, during the fight, they did the lockdown, and then the Spanish people, you know, Spanish population's the biggest population.
Yeah.
They knocked the fence down, they locked the yard, but it's just a fence. So they just pushed that thing down, and it was spilled out everywhere.
Wow.
It was a pretty, you know, big.
like, what was like a bunch of them?
I was in my block looking out the window at it all take place.
They're all like shaking the
Yeah,
fence,
yeah.
booting it.
Yeah, they
Wow.
knocked it down.
That must have been quite a sight to see.
And,
What are you thinking as you're watching this? Like, these people.
I'm just watching it like, you know, it's entertainment.
Right,
you know,
right,
and
right.
myself,
Good
I know
enough.
I'm going to be locked up now, but I had a color TV, I had 2 hot pots, you know. I had a single cell back then.
Yep.
You know,
So
everything's
might as
doubled
well,
up
they're
now.
already comfortable in there.
That was very comfortable. Then they had a snowstorm that year, and I was a runner on the block, and somebody ran over a gas line, so they locked down the whole prison for like 3-4 days straight.
Damn.
And they brought cold spaghetti, like they put it under your door, and when you open it, it was like hard with like ketchup on it. And that's what they were giving us every single day.
That's disgusting.
And everybody's throwing it out, you know, and it's all over the place. I'm supposed to be cleaning that up, you know, when I get out.
Damn.
But I said I quit. You know, when they opened the door, I'm like, yeah, I quit.
Why do you?
I'm not cleaning all that up.
Why did you quit? Okay. Did
The whole
you
place is
did you
trash.
not just want to clean it up, or did you realize like, yo, the inmates are trying to make a stand? I'd kind of be a sucker too if you clean it up.
A little bit of
or
both.
Okay.
I don't want no part of it. I'm like, I'm all set. I'm not going to be out there looking like a fool.
Yeah.
You know.
Right. Because they might get mad at you.
My stuff's out there
Yeah.
too. I was throwing it
Yeah.
out every day because I had 2 hot pots going, you know. And I'll never forget it because it was winter time, and that was the best 3 days I had in my whole 2-year, 9-month bid, being locked down
lockdown?
and that. And
Why?
other people are screaming because, you know, people that have no money, no food, they were losing their minds, you know.
What did you like about the solitude?
You could have cigarettes back then too,
Oh,
so
yeah.
people were
Before
screaming,
98.
yelling, you know, and the solitude. Channel 2, I watched Sade came on, and you know, Smooth Operator and all that. And this was like after her career was like dwindling down, and I watched that, and I was like, I've been a huge fan of her ever since then. And I just watched Count of Monte Cristo, different things, you know. I just sat there watching movies and writing, and you know.
Yeah. So you think the people that were kind of going crazy, they were the ones that really didn't have nothing in there?
Yeah.
Or why do you
We
think
had this
they went
one guy.
nuts?
He would start on the first cell, right? And he had nothing, you know, poor guy. But he'd start at the first cell. He'd say, "You got a cigarette?" They're like, "No." "You got a paper, you know, for a rollie?" And they're like, "Why? You got tobacco?" He's like, "No," but you know, he just
Right.
So then, if they said no to that, he'd say, "You got a match?" You know, and they're like, "Yeah, here." And
Right.
he'd take the match.
Something.
He'd go to the next cell, and he'd
Yeah.
ask the same thing.
Yeah.
And before he, he'd then eventually get his rollie.
Yeah.
You know, and he did that every single day. Everybody knew him.
Yeah.
And all these people, like we had, everybody's racist talking about, you know, like white power, black power, this and that. But they're all playing cards together. And, you know, they had this group that was gambling. You know how gambling is. I never played cards. So
Yeah.
I can't like put my mind on something so simple. You know what I mean? My head's out there. You know, I could never. I tried, but I just couldn't concentrate on such a thing.
What kind of things did you do to pass the time other than just watching the TV? Read a lot of books.
I was in the
work
yard
out?
every time it was open. I mean, yard was everything to me. You know, the gym.
What'd you do in the yard? You just walk laps? You do
I would
the
run,
bars?
walk,
Did you play basketball?
talk with my friends. You know what I mean? It was just like I wasn't too good at basketball. Every time I tried to play, I would. They're like, pass it here.
Yeah.
They don't take a shot.
So you eventually go home. Do you go home from Shirley Medium, or do you hit a minimum?
Well, and when I was in Shirley too, another thing happened. It was on my block E.
What happened?
Late at night, the 11 to 7 shift, right? So everybody's locked in the night, and this guy jimmied his door, so it wouldn't lock. And every night they had the 2 COs on. One was a woman, one was a guy. The guy would leave the block and go hang out and talk to other COs, and the woman would fall asleep in her chair. This guy came out. I was asleep. I didn't see it happen. And he beat her. She was already asleep.
Wow.
He started beating her, and then he right there on the
Wow.
block in E block, Shirley,
horrible.
Massachusetts.
What happened with him? They caught him.
I mean, it's all on camera.
him away, yeah.
But I mean,
That's horrible.
we all slept through that.
That's horrible. See, like I say, a lot of the guys in there, man, are just people like you and I who might have made mistakes or wrong place, wrong time, and there's some people who
And then
completely
you got the people
innocent
like that, though,
and then
that
there's
are like really sinister, evil. And you can see it in their eyes too,
Yeah.
and they come around trying to talk to everybody. Everybody clams up.
yeah,
You know,
the weirdos.
Yeah.
Really, damn, that's horrible. Man.
And actually, there was a guy back then. He was the fattest guy I ever saw in my life. And the big story going around the whole prison was that he like cooked children and ate them or something because he was just so
Yeah.
big. And it was almost believable. You know, it was
Right,
like an
right,
urban
right.
legend about
Yeah,
this
yeah.
guy. But he would sit and Shirley, where you put your plate in when you're done in the chow hall, he would just lean against the wall. His stomach was like hanging. He was about 1,000 pounds. He had to
Wow.
be. I've never seen anybody that big in my life. You would throw your plate, and he would just grab handfuls of food and eat
Leftovers?
Yeah, and the COs just let him go at it. You know, they didn't want to deal with him.
Yeah.
You know,
That's wild. you see, you do
Yeah.
see
Some
people
strange
from all
things.
walks of life, all sorts of strange things.
so I go to Shirley Medium up the hill. You know, after 2, I think I did like 2 years or
You mean you go to the
year
minimum?
and a half. Yeah, I did the minimum, and I was up there with a bunch of Lynn guys, and I was only there for 3 days when they came and they said, "TOPPI, you're out of here. You're going back." And I'm like, "Why? What?" And they said I had an open case on the computer, which you can't have open cases, but I didn't have any
yeah.
open cases. When I was out on the drug trafficking, and that's another thing. So I'm out on 2 bails. Well, I caught another case for selling drugs again. And so I was on another bail. Actually, they gave me a personal recognizance.
Wow.
I'm on $17,500 bail, and I get arrested selling drugs again, and they give me a personal recognizance.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild.
That's how
You
it was
got-
back
you got
then.
lucky.
Yeah. So I just pled guilty to that case, and it was ran concurrent with that one.
But you had to finish your time behind in the medium?
No, so I didn't get lugged back to Shirley. They lug you all the way back to Concord.
Okay.
So I'm in the L building this time.
Yep.
You know, anybody who gets lugged, they go to the L. So that's the big dorm, you know. And they straightened that out, and they shipped me back out to another minimum, which was Longwood Treatment Center.
Okay.
You ever hear of that?
Nope.
I don't even know if it's open anymore.
Probably
it
not.
Was, it was co-ed. There was girls and guys
Okay.
in there. So, but you couldn't get good time, and I didn't know that.
Wow.
So I go there, and we had a volunteer. Well, not we had to go to the food bank in Boston, right behind Nashua Street Jail.
Okay.
That's where it was located, and people would be putting signs up, you know, talking to us, and we did that with the girls, and they took us on the highway, picking up trash and everything. And this treatment center was full. The COs that were there were like misfits that couldn't make it in other institutions,
Right.
and they got this job for some reason. And we had guys that would bring us. One guy bought us, you know, he went out of his own money. He bought like 5 pizzas,
Yeah.
you know, and we were all chowing on pizza. And he brought us swimming at the reservoir right in Lynn, off of Route 1 Saugus, right?
Breakheart?
Yep, Breakheart.
Wow.
Not Breakheart. No, it was
Oh,
was
no.
illegal swimming. It was the reservoir,
Oh, okay.
with the drinking water.
Damn.
You're not supposed
Yeah.
to swim there.
Yeah.
And there's a pump house, so everybody's climbing on the top of the pump house, and I climb up there, right? But I'm afraid of water and heights. So they're all jumping off, and I'm like, I can't. I said to the CO, I'm like, you got to call the fire department or something. I can't come down. He's like, you better get down here right now. And I'm like, I can't. I'm afraid. He's like, jump in the water.
Scared
And so he says, go get him, guys. So the guys, they climb up, and they're coming at me. And I'm like, they're going to jump me in the water. And so I just jumped. And then after that, I wanted to do it again and again. I was like, geez, TOPPI.
Well, that's what happens. You get through a fair and it's like
Yeah.
kind of realize how ridiculous
So
it is.
I ended up getting lugged from there. Weed, or somebody had weed. They tested a bunch of us. I didn't test positive, but I got lugged.
Okay. Huh.
I don't know how that. So I go back to Concord. Now I'm in the Jason again. So in Concord, I've been in the Hole, the J's, the L's, East up, West up, and the Mods. I was housed in every place that you could be housed in Concord. County jail, you know, I'd never been in a county jail before. And when I was being held on this case that I'm now going to court for, I went from Concord to county jail, and it was just like so depressing.
Did you go directly from Concord to county jail because you had the open case, or do you get out and then?
No, this is, I just jumped way ahead. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
but
No, it's all good. It's all good. So you end up finishing. Where do you end up finishing up
I end
that
up
bid?
finishing I'm in Concord, and they asked me if I wanted to go to another minimum, and I'm like, no way, I'm not dealing with that. You know,
Especially
I
you
keep
could get
getting lugged for nothing.
good time where you're
Well,
in Concord.
I'm lugged for a clean urine,
Right.
you know, and then I'm lugged for a case that's open when there isn't one
Right,
open.
yeah.
I'm like,
It's not
I
even
just
worth
want to
it.
go back to Shirley where all my friends are.
Yeah.
They're like, you want to go to a medium security? Medium.
Right.
I'm like, yeah. So I go back
Mm-hmm.
to Shirley medium. I get into the Spectrum program, single cell.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 7.5 days, good time.
Cool.
You know, and that's
Wrap
where I
up from
finished
there.
up. And
And the case you have going now, is that your next time that you get in trouble, or did you get
Yeah,
some things
so-
in between?
in between, that was I got out in '94, September of '94. That's when a year later I met my wife, who I have children with. I was going out with a Haitian girl, and we broke up, and then I met a Dominican girl. You know, they're both from the same island. She becomes pregnant, and being a Irish, Italian, Catholic, I do the right thing and marry her. You know, and our daughter was born in '97, and I haven't been in trouble since, you know.
Right.
And I started my own landscaping business, right? Called A Better Landscaping. I had my truck, my trailer. I'm doing good. I'm staying out of trouble. And boom! One day I ride my bike on my day off, and I see this guy laying in the woods. You know, it was in Salem. I went off the road, and I had to take a leak. And I take a look, and there's this guy laying in the grass, and I could see his white T-shirt. I had no idea it was a cop.
What?
And they had, I guess, there was hundreds of marijuana plants in the neighborhood there, in that area, and they were staking it out. And the guy gets up, and he's got his badge on, but it's tucked down his shirt, and I don't see it. And he's got a Glock, but
Right.
his shirt's hanging over that too. I have no idea he's a cop. He ducks his head, and he just charges me.
Wow.
You know, and I'm thinking, I'm in the middle of the woods. What's going on? Who is this guy?
Defend
So
yourself.
I threw an uppercut, hit him perfectly in the jaw. He fell in front of me on his knees. I'm looking at the top of his head, and I just start hitting his ears. And then I turned to run because I don't want to. I don't know where this is going to go. You know, I don't even know who this guy is.
Right.
He grabs my ankle, and I fall down on my face, and he's on me. So me and him scramble.
Still no mention
No
that
mention
he's a cop.
Copy. I managed to get on top of him, and I got him pinned. I don't even know how I did it. I'm not the toughest guy in the
Right.
world. But fear, you know, I got
Adrenaline,
my kid at home. Then next thing you know, all these other guys come out of nowhere, and this old cop puts this illegal sleeper hold on me, and I wake up in cuffs.
Wow.
And they're like, all right, this is what we're going to say. I hear them saying that. And I'm like, what? And so when I go to court, I pay for an attorney. That's when I went up to the judge. I go up to the judge who was once my lawyer for armed robbery.
Wow.
And he says, I have to recuse myself from this case. I don't know if he put in a good word for me with a different judge,
Right.
but I waived the jury because they were lying about everything, you know? And so I figured, I don't need a jury. A jury's going to believe lies.
Right.
But a judge,
Emotions, more
a judge is
facts.
going to go by the facts.
Yep.
You
I
know?
agree.
I don't agree anymore. So
I mean, I agree with the thought process, you know, at the time. You think
So the prosecutors, we have a recess, and they say don't talk about the case, you know, or to witnesses or anything.
Right.
And then we're in the hallway, and I see the prosecutor passing out papers, talking to the other cops, and they're talking about what to say. And so I tell my lawyer, I'm like, look. So he puts the cop on the stand, and one of the guys, the guy who found the weed was, he was a cop from Middleton, you know, who couldn't be a cop, so he was a correctional officer with the dog. He was training his dog up there and stumbled upon the weed.
Okay.
So he shouldn't even have been part of the, you know, the task force that was there. He's not even a cop.
Right.
The lawyer puts that guy on the stand, and he lies. He says, no, he didn't pass us anything. We weren't talking about the case. Then he calls in a cop, and he asks him the same question, and the cop's like, yes, he gave us a piece of paper. So that means the other guy just lied on the stand, you
Right.
know? So the judge is like, I'm dismissing this. And the prosecutor, I believe, lost his job. You know, he got demoted.
I think that's good. I think there's not enough accountability for DAs with stuff like that, and they're too obsessed with the conviction.
Yes.
That's why I call it the conviction system, not the justice. They don't look for justice. Let's not.
No.
That's just a euphemism for conviction.
Here I am, a guy with a kid. I have my own business. You know, I apologize for hitting the guy. I thought they were going to beat me up too.
Did they charge you with like assault and battery on an officer?
Yep. And they were about to beat me up, and I knew better to try to. I had to use psychology on them and say, "Oh, thank God you guys came. He was getting the best of me.
Right,
Meanwhile, I'm the one on top of him.
Right.
You know, but I knew I was going to get the beating, so they didn't even beat me up.
And wow. And this judge dismisses that?
He just dismissed that case. So yeah, that was the point where I was so angry that I didn't have what I wanted from my family, that I sold all my equipment, stopped my business. You know, it was in the paper too, you know, this arrest.
Right.
And I went back into drug dealing. That was in 2000 and I think 2000.
2000. How long does that last? You last longer this time?
That lasted a very long time, because the first time I only lasted 6 months, but I didn't use drugs back then. And I wasn't paying the karma, you know, the karma that comes with selling drugs. This time my mentality was, I'm about to destroy people's lives, because that's all the drugs do. You know, they just destroy everything wherever they go.
Yeah.
It's just destruction. You know?
Absolutely.
And so I used drugs to pay the karma, and I never got arrested. I started making a lot of money, hand over fist, just like I was a one-man army. I went from a little bit to a lot. Got myself a home in Lowell, three-family home for my family, and my mentality was that if I got arrested and went to prison, my wife could rent out apartments and still have a home for our children. And I grew up in a broken home, and the only thing I wanted was the security for my family, you know.
Yeah, that's what we all. I feel like that's what we all coming from broken homes really want, man.
And that I was obsessed with that, and that's why I was doing what I was doing. But I knew it was wrong.
Did you have any plans to be like, okay, this money is gotten this way? How do I make it look legit? How do you go about that? Or if you don't want to touch, I don't know where everything stands now, so you don't have to touch anything
I can't
that you
get
don't
into
want
all
to.
that. But I did. I had people from all walks of life. You know,
Gotcha.
Police officers, firefighters, bankers. You know, the restaurant owners. You know. And I was all great at first, you know, it always is. You know, I was young. Actually, I wasn't that young.
2000, you're getting a little older, a little bit at a time. You got a state bit under your belt at this time.
I worked out a lot though back then. You know, I was in good shape, and I bought myself a house in Pepperell, Massachusetts, a one family.
An additional house, or you just sold that one? Okay.
So we could rent the other apartments out and help pay for our mortgage here. You know. And if anything happened to me, my wife had security. You know, that's all I cared about.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, I got to get out of this. You know, it's dragging me down. I can't stay doing this. You know, and so this is right when the housing market fell out. You know how the banks got bailed out from the government.
Yep.
And people lost their houses.
Yep.
You know, they had all these bogus mortgages. You know, so I owned 2 homes, never missed a payment, and then I went to buy a building in Lowell. That had a warehouse, offices upstairs, and a bar downstairs. I couldn't have a bar in my name because, you know, I'm a convicted felon. Wow. So that was in my wife's name, and it was a hard time getting a loan, but eventually we got the loan from the bank. But the seller talked me into bypassing the bank and doing a deal with him, and where we were on his. The paperwork that owned the building, the trust fund, but we were going to bypass the realtors so we could both save money. I mean, he just was scamming me, you know?
Right.
He changed the locks upstairs. I actually put in a sprinkler system in the building because it didn't have one. I couldn't rent up the building until the sprinkler. So I was under constant surveillance from the state police at the time. Round-the-clock surveillance, and I had a system where I would work, and then when I felt the heat, you know, everybody's a snitch when it comes to drugs. You know, drug addicts, people would, you know, I watched people lose everything, you know, and I wasn't some street guy.
Right.
You know, I had legitimate customers who had things to lose, and they lost them. I watched them. You know, I lost my own thing. I lost my mind, and I lost my family.
Damn.
So we're in the bar. I'm under 24-hour-a-day surveillance from the police. They're looking into my finances, everything about me. You know,
Wow.
I'm under surveillance, state police. At the same time, I'm being defrauded out of $500,000 while the police are investigating me.
Wow.
You know, and it's all. I even I got a lawyer to sue the guy, and when the guy filed bankruptcy, the lawyer dropped the case. You know, after I spent $30,000, I just lost. I'm still
Wow.
paying for that. You know.
Well, can't get blood from a stone, right? That's what they say.
Yeah.
I mean, is that why they pretty much dropped the case? He's bankrupt. There's
cops-
nothing to sue for. Is
Plus
that
the cops,
I don't know how that works.
The bar was called Willie Tops, and it had a purple top hat out front with the green, you know, trim around it. When you went inside, it was all purple, like a mystical purple color, and it was green around the. So you were inside the top hat.
Very soothing colors and earthy.
Well,
kinda, you know.
I just thought of it as a top hat,
Yeah.
you know, and you went inside the top hat, and it was all mirrored wall where the dance floor was, and we got it pumping, you know. We had people who promoted their DJs and stuff, and place was just, you know, really doing well.
Wow.
One time we had a lingerie like party or something, and the bartenders were wearing lingerie. All these people coming in lingerie, and I mean, when you have a bunch of Spanish people and it's lingerie, the girls are like practically naked.
Yeah.
And there's a fight. The cops show up, and the cops are like, "Whoa,
What's going on?"
whoa!" You know,
That's fun.
instead of paying attention to what's going on, they're like,
Right.
"Hey, we got to come here, yo!" And the cops ran us
wild.
out of town.
Yeah.
They, I remember one time a guy like, I just found someone drinking outside. I'm like, is that, you know, he had a bottle. I was like, well, let me see that bottle. I can compare it with ours. There's numbers on bottles. And he's, you know, he was just making it up.
Yeah.
So they ended up
Shutting
us down. You know, the
At this time, do you know about the when you get shut down? Do you know about you being investigated and all that, or what's?
I'm being investigated. The cops are harassing us. I'm being defrauded out of my money, harassed by the police nonstop.
All angles, man. Yeah.
My mother passes away right at that time,
Jeez, rest in peace. Yeah.
and my house gets raided.
Wow.
When I wasn't home.
When it rains, it pours.
Yeah. So they go to the house. Nobody's there. It's nighttime too, because we left right when it was almost night, and the warrant said they have to come in the daytime and they have to announce themselves. They went in when nobody was home at night, and when we opened that door, right, and I was with my kids. My son was like 6, my daughter was 9 at the time or something. It was the kitchen, all the food, everything, like boxes of cereal, everything was dumped out in a pile on the floor in the kitchen. I mean, trash.
Yeah.
When we went into the other rooms, it was the same thing. Every room, you know, my kids' clothes thrown out, our drawers dumped out, house trashed.
Wow.
And there was a piece of paper on the table that said, warrant to search the house for narcotics.
What did they allegedly find?
Nothing.
Not a thing.
Nothing. I
They
was
leave.
never charged.
Okay. Wow.
I called them up. Oh, they had towed my truck from the bar, too. And I called them up, and I'm like, my house is ruined. My truck's taken. What's going on? Like, you know? And they were like, oh, come get your truck, which cost me like $500-600 from storage. I'm like, well, am I being charged or anything? Nope.
Do they reimburse you with that money? I take it.
They trashed, they destroyed everything we had. And that really happened to me. We're out of the bar. They shut us down. The guy steals all my money, $500,000.
Like, how does your mental health start going with all that happening to you?
Well, I actually was clean at the time.
You were? Okay.
Yeah, when because I was going to get out of the business. I was buying the building, and I was going to get out of the business. Everything was going to be, you know, wonderful, right? My kids were going to have security. Yeah. Everything was going to be great.
All this goes down. Your mom dies. Where's your mental health at, man?
My mental health was really bad at the time, so I had to go back out and do what I didn't want to do anymore. You know, and continue on with that. And it just after 9/11, you know, 9/11, when I first started off, Coke was cheap. You know, you could get a kilo of Coke for like $20,000 and make
Right.
you know, $80,000 off of it in a month.
Yeah.
You know, like crazy money. Then after that, it was like $35,000, $40,000, double the price. And then after that, the drug trade changed, and you had the synthetic drugs. Instead of coke, it was meth. Instead of heroin, it's
Fentanyl.
fentanyl.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
and everybody's dropping dead.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
and that brings me to my latest case. That's what was going on. I'm still trying to make money. I want to get out of it. You know, I'm done. But, you know, I hate myself for destroying lives. You know what I mean? The
Guilt. Yeah.
yeah, it was
It's
terrible.
real. Yeah, especially if you are genuinely a good person deep down. Even though we do make decisions that we as men make. You know, we make these decisions. Granted, even if it's for a good reason, right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions, but we pay for the things we do, and we own up to our consequences, and we come home and we try to redeem ourselves.
Yeah.
You know what I
it
mean?
was
But
pretty difficult to live with, I'll tell you that. So I signed up for classes at Mount Wachusett. You know, I was going to learn, you know, and try to do something with myself, you know. But now I'm in my mid-40s. You know, I'm 45 years old.
Yeah.
I'm not young.
and you're still doing the hustling.
I'm just still doing the hustling. I had no choice. And then my marriage starts falling apart because I'm hanging out with, you know, other women, you know, in the drug trade. That's just what happens, you know. And I wasn't a good husband.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, at least you could admit that now. And how does it all come to a
Well,
head?
my wife met somebody else, and he worked for the sheriff's department at Billerica County Jail. So that brings me to this case right now, and what, you know, the my friend had just gotten out of prison, you know, county jail, whatever, and I didn't even know really what he was doing time for. It was like fraud, credit cards, house break, things like that.
Right,
He was,
county, so you don't think it's
his
not serious.
family, though, he has a brother who's a cop, a brother who was working as a court officer in Lynn. So he comes from a good family. He's just the last child, and he's always in trouble. So he's staying with this chick, Priscilla, who I know, and he says he painted her house. I had just painted my house in Pepperell, trying to make my wife happy, trying to change my life around and do, you know, but it was already too late at that point. And I had no idea she was seeing this guy.
Damn.
And so he says he had a painting job. So I'm like, all right. And he's going to show me this painting job, and he wants me to do it with him because, you know, I did my house, and he's not sure about how to, you know, price things and this and that. So I agree. He says, all right, I got to get my painting equipment at Priscilla's house. I go there. I got a Mercedes convertible. I pull in the yard, broad daylight. There's a neighbor right there working on his truck. I look right at him. He looks right at me. We go into the backyard. You have to go through this screened-in porch to get to the backyard. And so we go in there. We get a bucket with painting stuff in it, like rollers and brushes and things. And I grab some painting tops. We put them in the trunk of the convertible, right in front of the neighbor. And he's coming out with the big bucket, a $5 bucket of paint. And I'm like, oh, no, you can't take that. Because I know the homeowner, you know, and she's going to be like, they took my paint, you know, that cost me, it's like $150.
Right.
I just painted
usually
my house.
you leave this,
Yeah, so I said, no,
Touch-ups or
you
whatever.
can't take that.
Yeah.
And then because he was going to do that, I actually wrote a note saying I was there. You know, I said, Scotty, I came, took the paint and stuff with Ebby, and I left it in that screened-in porch. I drop off Ebby down in Lynn, you know, with his paint stuff, and he's supposed to meet up with me Sunday. He borrows money off me, too. Stops answering his phone the next day.
Just ghosts you.
Yeah. 2 days after that, I get a call from the Wilmington Police Department. They want to talk to me about a house break at that house.
Wow.
I'm like, great, you know. I'm trying to go to school. I'm trying to do things, you know. I want to save my marriage, this and that. Boom. I'm summoned to court. Well, first I do an interview with the cop. They come to Pepperell, to talk to me. I signed the waiver. I told him, yeah, I was there. I said, ask the neighbor. He says, what size shoe do you have? I'm like, 11 and a half. He goes, oh, there was an 11 and a half footprint.
Right.
I'm like, well, these are the shoes I was wearing. I'll give them to you right now. I have another pair in my car. You know, you want that one too? He's like, no. He didn't even look at my feet.
No,
He's
he
like,
was just
decline
saying
that. So then a couple weeks goes by, someone knocks on my door, I'm summoned to court.
Damn.
I go to the Superior Court by mistake, and they give me the address to the District Court in Woburn, and they want a $500 bail on me. The judge is like, no, he came here on his own. This is he's free to go. So I go. When I drive home, my bedroom, the closet's empty. My wife moved out when I was going to court that day.
Damn.
She moved out with the guy. So I'm there with my 2 children and my mother-in-law, who was still there with me. And I'm just bummed out, you know? So I keep trying to go to school and everything. And next thing you know it was my mother's birthday, who passed away. It was October 29th. And I'm bringing groceries in to my house. And so like, I don't know, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Cop car pulls up into my yard. In this neighborhood, there's no sidewalks and no street lights. It's a very private, wooded area. And you're under arrest. And I'm like, for what for now, Another house break and an assault on my wife, he says.
The fuck?
I'm like, I look at my window, my 9-year-old son's in the window looking at me with my mother-in-law as I'm handcuffed and put into the back of the cop car.
What the hell? Why would the hell would she say that?
She didn't say it. Her boyfriend said it. So, well, I don't know really. I never even saw the police report. The case was dismissed.
Yeah.
They did the kid and all that, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so now I'm in jail. And they bring me to Bill Ricker, where this guy works, but I have no idea he works there.
What?
And I have no idea what. They bring me to Concord because I'd done time before.
Yeah.
So in Concord, I get into my daily routine again. But I'm facing, in the house break, the woman said that I stole an urn with her mother's ashes in it, and bags of children's clothes and all the kids' toys. Wow. So I'm on a house break that was a summon for stealing someone's mother and children's clothes and a assault. You know what? You don't want to be in prison as a Skinner.
No, not with those charges, right?
Well, I'm on all these charges, and I'm 46 years old, and I'm like, what just happened to my life?
But at least you get that one dismissed. What happens?
Yeah, but not at that moment.
Not at that moment. No, eventually though, you get it dismissed. What happens with the B&Es? I mean, the one house you were working at. How do you get tied into that other house? Is it in the neighborhood and they try to pin it on you, or is that?
I actually live in that house. Right now.
Okay.
The house where I was charged with breaking in.
With the mother.
And with my wife, right? So I live there.
Oh, okay, got you.
Now I go to court. There's no second bails, but now it's revoked.
Yep.
The personal recognizance has been revoked. I'm in jail. I'm in Concord. I go into my routine, and I meet guys in prison, and they're like, "Toppy, don't talk about this stuff, because I'm just bummed out. You want to talk about things,
especially if you're
they're
proclaiming your innocence.
Yeah, they're like, you can't talk about this topic. So I'm like, and this time around, I'm a lot older. I'm different from the first time I went to prison in my early 20s, where everybody was from Lynn.
Right.
We had the Lynn Taylor.
Yep.
This time I'm middle-aged. I don't know anybody.
Everything's changed.
But I actually see
the
people.
The world's changed. The country's changed. The cities have all changed.
I'm back in Concord, the place where I did my time.
Yeah, 52A status.
25 years prior.
Sheesh. How do you end up getting out?
Well, I'm in East Up. I'm there for like 2 months. And I got my regular routine, and I was jacked at the time too. I was eating real good, and I was doing some Anadrol, whatever. I was big and muscular. So I'm hitting the gym because I might have to fight for my life. I'm thinking, people call me a Skinner. I'm not gonna eat that, So nobody did though. I never had any problems. But I'm working out. I walk the yard. I go to the church because I'm bumming out. It was. December 23rd that they arraigned me. From the summons of court became an indictment.
Wow. That
house break. Both cases went to the grand jury, and they didn't indict on the assault. I was found not dangerous too on a dangerous hearing. So that was all. There was not really much to it. And so the other case, though, they indict me for the housebreak. And I'm like, I told them the truth, you know. The neighbor saw me.
Yeah.
And they said we stole over 200 things, like huge items. The car has 2 seats and a little tiny trunk, a Mercedes convertible.
Wow.
There's no way you could fit all that stuff unless you went back
What's
and
your
forth.
theory about what happened with that stuff then? Or do you
My
think it's
theory
all a
is this.
lie? Or do you think someone
The
else?
police report said that he was texting this woman the night before, and with him was a person named Chris in the text. While the police were investigating the housebreak, a Chris showed up, and it's in the police report. Chris shows up at the scene, and he's identified as the woman's best friend, and she hung out with all criminal thugs. The police don't investigate that. Now, who's this Chris that he texted the night before, and who's this Chris that showed up? Don't you put 2 and 2 together? I thought that was fishy.
Okay.
And well, so it's 2 days before Christmas that they indict me, actually. So I'm all bummed out. I'm thinking about my kids.
Yeah.
I joined the Christmas choir at Concord State Prison, and we were singing, you know, for our souls, you know what I mean? And I had friends from the gym, the yard, and the chapel, you know, and none of them mixed with each other. They were all different types.
Yeah.
The older crowd, the younger crowd, because in the gym I was working out with these young guys.
Yeah.
And a lot of Cambodian kids from Lowell, you know, and I had my building in Lowell. They knew my bar. Then all of a sudden one day they're like, Toppy, pack it up, you're going to Plymouth. And everybody's like, oh man, Plymouth? Here, Toppy. And everybody's coming up to me, bars of soap. And I'm like, what? Like, they don't give you soap, you can't buy it. He's like, this is gold, take it with you. So I show up in Plymouth, and the only thing I'm carrying
Soap.
is soap, you know what I mean? I got like 10 bars of soap, you know? And everybody went crazy, like, you know, Dove and, you know. So when I get there, I realized, you know, those guys really helped me out because, you know, that was a bag of coffee right off the bat, you know.
Yeah. Your money doesn't come instantly. At least that wasn't my experience when I got from Cambridge to Plymouth. It took a while for
my mother-in-law is the one who came to visit me, you know, and I was like, she can't even speak English. My Spanish isn't the best, so that was my visit. And my sister-in-law, my wife's whole family, those are my only visits. And in Concord, but when I went to Plymouth, I didn't get any visits because it was so far.
Yep. How long were you in Plymouth?
I was in Plymouth for a year. The court appoints me. I go up against Judge David Ricciardoni, right? I'm appointed counsel, but I don't know that they have a list of appointed counsel, and they have to pick someone off the list, and they're strict about that because there's a case, Commonwealth versus Mills, where they were given special appointments to these certain lawyers, and those lawyers were hiring the same private investigator to investigate, but he was charging money without doing any investigations, and they were just milking the system.
Yep.
Well, that's the same thing that happened in my case. I had a specially appointed counsel. She wasn't on the list. It's supposed to be on the docket, marked. There was no notation about that. I had no idea. She immediately starts filing motions for investigators. Now, the text messages show Chris texting the night before with the co-defendant, and a Chris shows up at the crime scene.
Yeah.
None of that was investigated.
Right. And is this the case that you have open right now that you're talking about?
That's the case that I'm asking the governor to give me a pardon for.
Yeah.
And so she files one motion for money, another motion for money, and in the motion for money, they have to stipulate, you know, like why they, you know.
Yeah, what they need the funds for.
Yeah. And they also have to cite the law, you know, case law.
Private investigator or whatever it may be. Yep.
So she files these 2 motions, so she's got like a couple of $1,000s. Now, I'm in Plymouth for a year, right? And now I left Concord jacked. Now I'm in Plymouth. I don't know anybody. It's all gangs, you know, Brocken crew. I never had any problem, but it's just you're on the block, you know.
Yeah.
You eat on the block.
Yep.
You got a rec deck.
Yep.
Our rec deck was on the back side of the building, so we didn't even get the sun. I could see the sun. It would get close. We'd all be like reaching for it. We never got sunlight, you know, for a year. My cellmate was a homeless guy from Brockton. He was in there on a $250 bail.
Wow.
His charge was he was urinating on the side of a Dunkin' Donut where he he would hold the door open for
Yeah,
people
yeah.
and can't, ask for money.
Yeah.
Well, one day when he took a leak, they arrested him for exposing himself. They
Yeah.
wanted him to plead guilty as a sex crime.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they wouldn't do that, but they
Yeah,
just,
that's crazy, Tim. So tell me why you wanted to come here today and tell your story.
because when I sat in Plymouth for a year, my lawyer, Deborah DeWitt from Lowell, never told me anything about what's going on. Her husband would come and tell me, we're going to get you out of here, we're going to get you out of here. And I'm like, what's going on in my case, I ended up from a summons to court with no bail. When the other case was dismissed, the second assault and battery, whatever,
Yeah.
on February 12th, for 2 days I had no bail at all. And I was being held anyway. And they, on Valentine's Day of all days, they give me a $10,000 bail for the summons to court. With no evidence that I committed any crime. I cooperated with them.
That's why.
They now have the co-defendant. He was on parole at the time. That that's a charge in itself. He's already facing time. They're going to give him time served if he'll agree to say that I broke into the house with him, and it was all my idea and everything. When they know that I had nothing to do with it.
Wow.
Because the other case was dismissed. So my wife's boyfriend, he's coming to court every time. He tried to attack me, in the AA District Court when the case was dismissed. He, ran at me, and they had to tackle him down and drag him out of there. So
Wow.
after a year in Plymouth, they changed the toilets. They now have do you know about that, the system?
No, I was there in 05. They
man.
had the old toilet.
So you could flush a toilet whenever you needed to flush a toilet.
Yeah, yep.
Well, they came up with a new system where
Probably save, water.
you can only flush the toilet, and when you flush the toilet, you have to wait 5, 10, 15 minutes.
So there's
or
no more
whatever it is.
courtesy flushing.
No.
Wow.
So my homeless guy leaves the court and never comes back after 10 months living with the guy.
Jeez.
He used to wander around picking in the trash just like he was on the streets.
Jeez.
Collecting anything he could find.
So talk to me a little bit about the grounds of this pardon you're trying to get. Why? How does that go?
Well,
You just write a letter? Like, what are you saying? That
I
you
told
deserve the pardon for?
4 guys committed suicide at that time in Plymouth because the conditions were so bad.
Wow.
The food was horrible. I was fasting for 3 days a month, every month, begging God to help me. And it isn't easy to fast for 3 days
No,
with
I've
no
done
food.
one. That was tough.
I did 3 days for a year, and I did it, for my wife and my children. That was, and I was committed to it because if I broke it, I thought I'd never see my family again. And I live with them right now,
Wow.
so it obviously helped me out. I fasted for 3 days. I gave my food to the heaviest guy in the block because they gave you no food.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the Porsches are horrible.
So
man.
I said, I can't take it anymore here. And they put me on a suicide watch, right? And the next morning, whatever, the mental health lady comes and clears me. And I go back to a different block, a 5-man cell now because I was complaining about the toilets.
Yeah.
I can't, And then 2 days later, they call me, you got caught. So I go to Lowell Court. But when you're coming from Plymouth,
That's a troop. Holy smokes.
you got to go all over the state picking up, dropping off. So I got to Lowell every time by 1, 2 in the afternoon, every time.
Already
And
continuing.
then I get back to Plymouth at 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Oh,
You haven't eaten or had water or anything.
sandwich. I don't miss those days, man.
So court's canceled. They do all that to me. Court's canceled. They bring me all the way back. 2 days later, you got caught.
That's brutal.
Court's canceled. Why, so they bring me back. A couple of days later, they say, you got caught. I'm on my way to court. They say, court's canceled. You're being transferred to Bill Ricker jail, where my wife's boyfriend works. I'm like, what? They never transfer you in the middle of a court run. You're going to court, and all of a sudden,
that's
court's
weird.
canceled. You're going to be transferred.
Maybe because it's closer, and if they know you're gonna go back.
But
I don't know, but yeah,
I don't think
I don't see
that's,
that happens.
There's rules. I don't
Right.
think they can do that. Well, that's exactly what they did to me. They brought me to Bill Ricker, and my wife's boyfriend was the nurse who's supposed to, he worked from the 3 to 11 shift. So I'm there about noontime, 1 o'clock. Everybody gets pushed through, and I'm sitting in a cage waiting to be seen. And like, oh, you're going to be seen when the 3 o'clock shift comes in. 3 o'clock shift comes in, it's him.
Wow.
My wife's boyfriend, who I had to be tackled in prison,
Yeah.
in the court.
Yep.
Who just, so now I got all the COs, everybody, I'm just afraid.
Yeah. Yeah. You're.
I don't know what they're going to do to me.
Public enemy number one.
Yeah.
I bet. Yeah.
So then my court-appointed lawyer never comes to visit me. You know what she does? She files a last motion for more money to investigate.
Yeah.
And this motion, she files with the judge who specially appointed her, and she doesn't cite the law or anything. She just says, I need money for investigator, and he gives it to her.
Wow.
Which is, it's not even, the motion is not,
Valid. Yeah.
valid.
Yeah.
So she gets more money. They finally bring me to court, and the wife's boyfriend's there. The district attorney wants him to be able to speak against me. Mm-hmm. His case has been dismissed. There's nothing to do with him. Mm-hmm. And the judge, the lawyer, objects, but the judge doesn't do anything about it. Mm-hmm. So I just was on a suicide watch, shipped to the jail where he works.
Wow.
Shipped back and forth from court. It's canceled every day.
Yeah.
And now, here's the day. It's December 17th, and they're like, if you don't plead guilty right now today, you're going to go back to Plymouth, where you felt suicidal,
Yep.
or you're going to go to Bill Ricker, where this guy works. What do you want to do? You go to you plead guilty. You go to state prison.
Yeah.
You'll be back in Concord, the yard.
Yeah.
In the weight room.
Yep.
Because I was saying that to my lawyer.
Is that what you did? Did you plead guilty?
They made me plead guilty.
Wow. And how much did you get for time, and when did you eventually get out?
Well, that's the other part of this reason why I'm asking for a pardon. They have rules of procedure, especially with plea bargaining. Mm-hmm. The judge has to, by law, go by the strict rules of procedure. And Rule 12 has to do with pleas. So the other guy's getting time served a year for testifying against me. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, he's on parole.
Right.
And he's, I'm getting with my recorded convictions, I was arrested for 3 Valium pills that I did 30 days. They wanted jail time, and they got it for 3 Valium pills.
That's wild. No.
And that was in Billerica, where my wife's boyfriend worked. And then when he saw my name, that's when he called her up, and they started their relationship again. So that's the only thing I had on my record. Prior to that, I had drug trafficking from 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. My lawyer says he's a drug addict based on his criminal record, right? And the judge never questions me about that, if it's true or not. It's an assumption based on a previous record from 25 years ago, the 3 Valium pill. Wow. She says, my lawyer says, he was alleged to kick a dog. I find that very offensive, being a dog owner.
Yeah.
That's a conflict of interest.
Right.
The judge doesn't even question that. Then, when I go in front of him, when they finally bring me, they lobby the case without me. I'm not even there. I have no idea what's going on.
Sure.
When I get there, they say plead guilty now, or you're going back.
Yeah.
It's coercion, no?
Mm-hmm.
So I plead guilty. The judge says to me, do you understand that if you plead guilty for breaking and entering, you can get 10 more years in prison? And first he tells me, I'm going by the guidelines.
Yeah.
So he asserts right in court on the record, I'm going to follow traditional jurisprudence here and go by the sentencing guidelines and sentencing you, Mr. TOPPI. Do you understand that? Yes. Mm-hmm. The sentencing guidelines say 2 to 2.5 years in prison, but they didn't. It was 0 to 24 months based on my record. So my attorney had already said the false category level for me in my absence. Yeah. And the judge, he was about to say the real category level, and she interrupted him and added 6 months to it. Damn. And he says, well, the guidelines are just a guide. Yeah. So now he lies to me about what the guidelines are. Mm-hmm. Then he turns around and negotiates the terms of the sentence with me in court. Wow. Well, the prosecutor and the defense attorney both sit there and watch, knowing that he's violating the procedural rules of pleas.
Plea bargains.
Of pleas
in general. Yeah.
In general.
Wow. So that's wild. So I mean.
So then he asked me, "Do you understand?" He says, and I say yes, but he's lying to me. Mm-hmm. So my confirmation of understanding his lie is the truth is a fraud upon the court.
Right.
That's obvious.
It should be null and void or whatever, man.
I
really, we gotta wrap this up soon. So if I could just get some last words from you,
Last
man. I'm
words,
sorry to, I know you got a long story,
Yeah,
and everything
it's
like that,
too-
but we're restricted on
it's
the
all on
time
my,
and everything.
thing.
So yeah, any just closing words, man. And
So I tried to fight this case. I asked CPCS to investigate what happened to me, and 3 different investigators said nothing. No, nothing's wrong.
yeah,
I file a motion for a new trial. The same judge who lied to me denies it. I file an appeal. They use Rule 23 to deny, no hearing, denied. I file to the Supreme Court, Massachusetts Supreme Court, denied without explanation. I file a writ of certiorari with the United States Supreme Court. They allow it. It's there on the docket.
Yep.
And of course, it's denied. Some guy filing his own thing. And I file a complaint with the Judicial, Commission. They send me a letter addressed to someone else, naming a different judge. And then when I write them another letter, they say, well, we can't do anything about the discretion of a judge.
damn,
The judge doesn't have discretion to lie to you.
yeah,
So everything I've done through the law over 10 years has been denied, denied, denied. And meanwhile, I'm watching the country. People are shooting.
Yeah.
There's the Capitol riot. The Justice Thomas of the Supreme Court, his wife identified herself as being part of the not the riot, but the protests. So the whole country's going crazy, and I'm trying to do this through the law.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So damn. Well, I thank you for coming, man, and telling your story.
After everything I've been through, before I decided to petition the governor for a pardon, I thought I'd make a YouTube channel to put the truth out, because they put a wall up. And so I started a YouTube channel called Constitutional Fraud with William TOPPI. And I go over my case from the beginning, everything I've said here with you, but in detail through court.
Yep.
The minimus that I went to jail with was falsified. It said Wilbraham and Hampden County instead of Wilmington, Middlesex County.
Yep.
So I had -2 points, went to a medium. I went to Concord instead of a minimum. They did everything they could. So
Okay. Yeah, so
where I'm
that you
at.
can see it all there on the YouTube channel. Make sure you guys go subscribe to that. I hope everything works out.
I ramble
man.
on a lot
It's
about
all,
the past, but
it's all good. I hope everything works out, man. And I'm glad you came today, man. And I gotta let you go, man.
I don't
so
know
I'm
if
just gonna do a little outro. Guys, it is what it is. What's next is what you make it. On that note, we out of here. This is the Bounce Back Podcast. Tune in.
Bounce back, ain't got a moment when they see you